Tonight on Enough Said with KFAN Radio's Dan Barreiro.
Give me a great season. Don't whip your kid. Get back to us, then maybe we'll be able to extend and give you some deal.
Week?
Yeah.
Attorney and HoldingCourtPodcast.com's Ron Rosenbaum.
We're leading 2-1. We're outplaying this team, and yet it's over.
And executive producer Lori Fisher, who is keeping these guys on track and deciding when enough said.
End of story.
Okay,
in
enough
this case,
said with that.
The findings of our comprehensive, thorough, and independent investigation, coupled with the medical examiner's determination that Mr. Gray's death was a homicide, which we received today, has led us to believe that we have probable cause to file criminal charges.
Huge news today, Ron, in the Freddie Gray death, now killing. You've got 6 police officers charged with various crimes, one of them second-degree murder. And what it occurs to me is that we're at a real key point here in terms of how this goes. The calls have been for justice, certainly within the community in Baltimore. Will they view this as, yeah, they are attempting to hold cops accountable for at least what's being alleged here? Or will it be, this is confirmation of our worst fears, of what we believe we've been dealing with forever, and so does it end up actually heightening tensions as opposed to lessening them with an attempt at accountability?
Well, I think it's both. I mean, I think this is a confirmation of the worst fears, that police are killing people in their community. This is unprecedented, Dan. The state's attorney got the case yesterday, I think, and today announced...
Is this too fast?
Well, listen, everything is going to be political here. You're going to have a backlash, but you got one of the police officers charged with second-degree murder, the van driver.
Right.
Several other ones charged with manslaughter. This just doesn't happen. I'm not sure how the community, the black community that was out in the streets, is going to respond, other than the fact that I think they're now going to demand a conviction and say, isn't this what we've been telling you for years? It's about time you finally did it. I don't think it's going to solve anything.
Well, and we're back to, is this going to turn into another one of those cases that polarizes the country, that everybody has an opinion on, and that we're going to be talking about for a long time, because it smells of that, does it not?
Well, it already has. There's already a claim. The state's attorney is connected to Billy Murphy. He's the Freddie Gray's family's attorney. He's the biggest campaign contributor, apparently, to the state's attorney. Yes, listen, don't bet your life. This is not going to divide along racial lines, along class lines. I don't think it's going to solve anything, but you do have to admit that I don't even think the people on the street in Baltimore expected charges to come down this fast.
This fast and this significant. These are really serious charges, and we'll do the old innocent until proven guilty. We don't know everything and what they have, and we might not know for a while. There was a comment from the state's attorney that concerned me a little bit when she spoke today. She said, I heard your call for no justice, no peace. I think it's a terrible message to send, because it almost suggests that I'm giving you the narrative that you have demanded, as opposed to I'm following the evidence, I'm following the story. That's, to me, what a prosecutor should do, to send a message of that's what I'm all about.
Well, and we don't know it's not what she did, but we do know one thing. Those words will be parsed and played against her. See, all you're doing is throwing raw meat to the community.
Correct.
It doesn't mean this cop did it. Listen, this is going to be a polarizing event, not to mention these guys are going to get great attorneys, I guarantee you. And it's important, as you pointed out, charges do not necessarily mean guilty.
Correct.
And so I'm sure this is going to be tearing this community apart, both now and then eventually if a trial occurs.
Let's hope that there's no more violence, but let's also hope that if there's that possibility, the leadership in Baltimore do a heck of a lot better job than they did first time around, waiting a day on a curfew, all but asking for trouble. In fact, actually, the mayor almost
she said, we're going to provide a place for people who want to destroy. I've never heard a city official make a comment like that.
On that
before.
note, let's move on to the riots. Earlier this week, the image that a lot of people are talking about is that mom who was seen smacking her teenage son. He was throwing objects at police, and she said, get out of here. A lot of people praising her, calling her the mom of the year, even the police commissioner giving her props. What did you guys think of that video?
Well, it's a great subject. I want to read real quickly a couple sentences from a radio listener of mine at the Fan named Ricardo, an African-American man who sent this. I turn on CNN and see a young black woman slapping her young son being celebrated, juxtaposed against a young black multimillionaire named Adrian Peterson, who was raised without the consistent presence of his father, beating his son, for which he was rightly punished, being vilified. And he says he knows there's a difference in the severity here, but there is in his mind a causal connection between the violence in which we see brought upon us with these senseless deaths at the hands of those who are charged to protect us, the abuse or absence brought by those who are supposed to raise us, and the degrading words by which we speak to one another by those who are us, which I thought was very eloquently put. Are we frauds here in terms of when we are outraged about violence between family members?
I mean, this is apples to oranges. What Adrian Peterson did to his 4-year-old son is not analogous. But I got a lot of emails, Dan, saying, this is the year 2015. We don't lay a hand on our kids. That's the wrong way to raise them. And those same people are saying, I love this mom. Hit them harder. I like it. They might not have liked the mom so much if they know that was really at the bottom, because I've heard her talk about it. She was afraid her own kid was going to get killed out there. Now, she didn't want him throwing rocks. She liked the discipline, but she was also terrified. And I don't think that's a concern a lot of the Edina parents had if their kids were demonstrating in Minneapolis on the street.
Someone tweeted us, more mothers should have been there smacking their kids on that note.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, to amplify your point, what she said is, I don't want my kid to be another Freddie Gray.
That's what her point was.
That's a very different message than what has been conveyed, although I will still say there's a huge difference between whatever level of fear that was involved for the 4-year-old kid that Adrian Peterson decided had to be disciplined.
Who I don't think was out rioting or throwing rocks, right? I don't think so.
And this mother saying, if I don't step in, even violently, there's a chance whoever's responsible, whether it's rioters or whether
won't
it's
come home,
for somebody not coming home at all. So to me, it's a little bit.
I mean, I loved what that mother did, but some people think
they're running with it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, Mother of the Year, I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing: you have to respect what she did. Don't you agree?
Again, if you think that's if that's the only way you can get your child's attention at a moment like that, I don't love it. But I say, at that moment, that's too easy a Monday morning quarterback to say, well, you should have reasoned with the young man at that spot. You're literally grabbing him because you're afraid he's going to run off and get involved.
She's hitting him in there.
Okay, let's move on. You guys mentioned AP. Let's talk about the NFL draft underway. And last night, what did and what didn't happen with AP?
Well,
let's
start with the draft as a concept. They moved it this year, Ron, to, as you know, Chicago. They basically rearranged the city more than.
By the way, did you ever imagine they were going to move the venue?
No, and that's it. And you know what the new step's going to be? Sooner or later, first round's going to be in one city. Then they're going to sell the second and third rounds to another city, and the rest of the draft to another city. This has become beyond big business, and the NFL gets ripped for a lot of stuff. I don't get it, but Chicago basically rearranged routes.
Everything.
The whole town was turned around in a way they haven't done since conventions. And so when the NFL speaks, you call.
I think the next thing that logically is going to happen is somebody demand the city build a stadium so that they can have
the big arena.
I think that's where it's going.
Amphitheater.
But can you imagine? I mean, how many years ago was it you'd read about the draft? Now it's not only on national television, Dan. It's on 2 national networks, and people stay home on Friday night or Thursday night,
highly rated than games in other sports,
to watch the draft.
For the Vikings.
By the way, this isn't football season now, is it?
It's football season's now 12 months a year, and Adrian Peterson is really the big story because he did, from the Vikings standpoint. He didn't get traded. And that was the time if it was going to happen. And I think it's further indicative of 2 things. One, his own agent might have inflated how much teams were willing to give up for a 30-year-old running back who does have some mileage on him and a little bit of baggage. And it's further commitment that the Vikings had that they're ready to bring him back, and the only way they weren't is if somebody would have done a reversal, a reverse of the Herschel Walker trade.
Yeah, a reversal.
That people are still to this day traumatized. Vikings fans are still traumatized by that very deal. First
of all, Vikings fans are always traumatized.
That's true.
Okay, I mean,
for good reason.
From 1961 when the team got here, the things that they've seen. But as far as Peterson, I mean, listen, I don't know why the Vikings on day one didn't say, you're under contract to us. If you don't play for us, good luck. I hope you can make $12 million somewhere else. But it sure looks like the agent misplayed his hand.
Ben Dogra? The guy who posed with the Tampa Bay cap and
what
tried
was
to
the
cause
point of that?
Well, he's
the
already back this morning basically saying, well, if the Vikings want him, then let's pony up. Basically, they want guaranteed money. If I'm the Vikings,
what's his leverage?
I don't budge an inch, at least through this season. Give me a great season. Don't whip your kid. Get back to us, then maybe we'll be able to extend
and give you some deal.
But isn't this what we said
last week?
Yeah.
The agent's job is to make things better for the player,
right,
not worse. I'd like to know how this agent has not misplayed his hand
Enough
from the beginning.
said, guys.
Question on the table, what do we do with Tsarnaev in terms of the death penalty, in terms of putting him to death? What
the Boston
constitutes
bomber.
correct justice? And over a period of years, I have become far less interested in the death penalty because of all the changes when it comes to DNA evidence and so forth, but the possibility, yes, even remote, of putting somebody to death, and then 5 years later they get a piece of evidence that says, uh-oh, we got the wrong guy. That's not a concern here.
That's not a problem in this
case. We've got the
case,
right guy here. So I'm not offended by the idea of putting him to death. I think this is, if there is a death penalty case that's perfect, this is it. But everybody has a different view of who we're supposed to please here. And I don't think we have to worry about pleasing necessarily victims' families, the concern about is he going to become a martyr. I think justice should be what constitutes justice for that heinous act and his involvement in it. What do you think?
Well, for people who say I'm in favor of the death penalty, go, if not him, who do you give it to? A mass murder. But the tricky part comes where some people say, don't give him what he wants. He wants to go with the 40 virgins and the whole deal and be executed. In addition to the fact that if he doesn't get the death penalty, I mean, he's going to be convicted. They've already basically, that phase is over. He's going to go to the Supermax, and a kid that age is going to be spending for the rest of his life, Dan, 23 hours a day in solitary confinement, which some people say is torture. What's the worst punishment? If you want to give him the worst punishment, a lot of people say, including his own lawyer, by the way, it makes an odd argument.
Yeah, right.
I want him punished even more by sending him to prison, which seems to be the reverse argument that she really wants to save him from the death penalty.
And Ron, when you said don't give him what he wants, Darren Svensson tweeted us, does he deserve to be reunited with his brother? I think not.
See, that's, people want, this all goes to the question, what's the worst punishment?
What is the worst punishment?
Because Darren,
what's your definition?
Yeah, I'm just saying, listen, his brother's dead, don't give him the reward of killing him. I mean, it's kind of an odd situation. We didn't have this with Timothy McVeigh.
No, we did not. Some of the family members of victims have said, I want life without, what's obviously life without parole, because if we go through the death penalty deal, there's going to be appeal after appeal, and I don't get closure. I don't know that I understand that. I can't put myself in those shoes, but the bottom line is, he's going to, even if there's appeal after appeal, it's not going to be an appeal that gets him out.
No.
He's going to stay in the environment you suggest as long as that you're in that period anyway. So I don't understand the distinction between, well, don't do death penalty because he's going to have a chance to work the system. Let him work the system. So what? Who cares?
I mean, it also goes, in our system, the victims really don't have a say. They can publicly say, they might even be able to testify in court, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a jury of 12 people. I'm not opposed to the death penalty as long as there's due process. In this case, there was plenty of due process. I don't know. I guess if you have a death penalty and he doesn't get it,
who does?
Who do you give it to?
And within families and victims who can speak up, as you say, there's usually not unanimity there anyway. So to me, what do you do? A vote on which way the victims' families and the majority want to go? I just, with all due respect to what their pain is, I just don't think that should enter into whatever our definition is of justice.
Well, I mean, we can listen to them, but at the end of the day, it's going to be 12 people who are going to make the decision. And it kind of seems to me that if they don't give Tsarnaev the death penalty, who's going to get it?
Well, and there's also the concern about martyrdom if he is put to death. Again, look, the people who want to use him as a hero, they're going to do that regardless of whether he's killed or not. I don't think it's a distinction.
Enough said. Let's move on to an issue back here at home. We're talking about the Southwest Light Rail. It was announced earlier this week by Met Council that it is going to cost another $341 million, bringing the total price tag to nearly $2 billion. Governor Dayton even saying he's shocked and appalled by all this. What about you guys? What do you think?
Well, he's always shocked and appalled on any of this stuff, the overruns and seat
Does he
ticket
ever read what's on
licenses.
his desk?
I don't know.
I mean, first of all, what is $341 million among friends?
seems like
I mean, it's like
chicken feed.
nothing. Why are they fighting about
It's
it?
another tax. Well, do you think the gap could be wide, or I should say lessened by going back to that pull tab deal? And we
You mean the one that was going to fund the Viking Stadium, or the seat licenses that didn't exist?
It has actually raised, I think, between $300 and $400, which might be a little less than what they expected. No, look, this stuff is all crazy. How do any of us know what it should really be worth? But it's a little disingenuous because on the front end, they always bring out a number that's going to be more palatable.
It has nothing to do with what it's going to cost.
Exactly. And the fine print about what some of the land is
This is why I
like.
love politicians. They're absolutely beautiful.
They're known for
and
doing
everybody's
exactly
appalled.
like that.
And you know, sooner or later, something's going to happen there anyway. I don't care how much it costs.
I think it will get built, actually.
I think it kind of will.
Yeah. I hope.
You don't have to worry about, no.
Across now, Kirk has to get it quickly to the front. Bouncing puck, it's in! That one off a body in front of Dubnik. It is in with 1.8 seconds remaining here in the second period.
So let me
That
ask
was
you
the
something.
moment.
You're one of us. I'm not.
See, you're not. I want to be
As
clear.
You've made that very clear, and you will again, I'm sure. The Wild's lead is cut to 2-1 in literally the final seconds of the second period of Game 6, chance to clinch at home against the Blues. And honest to God, via Twitter, the fetal position by everybody going from we were cocky that we're going to win to now there's no chance we're going to win.
Game's
In fact,
over.
We're going to, let's just start thinking about the draft. Let's start, no, we don't want to think about the Twins. Let's think about football next year because our season's over. Just because the lead was cut by one goal, and by the way, Parisi got that one back pretty early in the third period. What's going on with get inside the mind of people like you?
Well, first of all, you don't understand because you're not from here.
No, I never have been.
This is
I've been
classic.
Here almost 30 years.
That's not enough. It's not even close to enough. This is classic flyover land. This whole state, all of us,
So
have
we
a
always
chip
expect
on
the worst.
Well, it happens. The Lakers, who we loved, left.
But
the
they won championships before they left.
No, none of us were old enough to remember
Twins won
that.
2 World Series.
The Twins never won a home game in the World Series, okay? And they lost the first World Series they were in '65. Everybody here is sitting on a razor's edge waiting. I mean, we're leading 2-1. We're outplaying this team, and yet it's over. I got 100 email. It's over. It was a great series. It's too bad. I mean, that's just that's the nature. See, in Boston, they never think anybody will beat them even after the game when they've lost. But here,
because they've won a little bit more.
Well,
it's hard to listen to a lecture from you as one of us about expecting the worst. I grew up, and I explain a lot about my personality, a Cubs fan. At Wrigley Field, when it wasn't fashionable to go, and when they would lose endlessly. This was a team that once used they loved a pitcher who claimed to have hypnotized himself every time he went out on the mound. And by the way, he lasted about a week and a half.
But you had the White Sox, and you had the Bears, and you had, I mean, Chicago was like considered a big city. We were considered rubes from the Midwest. It's all in the way Minnesota.
They're all against us. Well, how are you going to set it up now? Most of the country nationally, the big shot hockey wonks, are picking the Wild to beat a Stanley Cup pedigree Blackhawks team. So how can you say we're being disrespected or nobody believes in us now?
I didn't say we're being disrespected. I said we feel we're being disrespected. It's the perception. Doesn't matter how many people pick. We're always waiting for that one moment when it'll all fall apart.
Favre throwing across his body at the moment of truth in the NFC title game in New Orleans.
Too many men in the huddle, right?
Yeah, there is that. How about 1998?
The missed field goal.
We were unbeatable that season with Denny.
Except what happened? How many Super Bowls have we been to? How many Super Bowls have we won?
Beginning to understand it now a little bit.
It's just the Minnesota mentality.
And what about the Timberwolves?
Okay, time for the lightning round. Dan, what's your prediction for the Wild Blackhawks series?
I'm going to go Homer. I'm going to pick.
Well, it's not home for you.
Wait a minute. What's Homer? I'm from Chicago, actually.
See,
Gary,
that's
Indiana.
the point.
I'm picking my new home. You don't allow me to.
Well, you are an outsider.
Wild in 6, just like I predicted the last series. Blackhawks are they're great, but they're a little weary of the burden. It's over.
Well, I'm picking the Wild, although I fully expect them to lose. But I am picking the Wild.
So sounds like you're actually picking Blackhawks in 4.
Yes, that's right.
That Minnesota
exactly.
mentality.
Well, you gotta prepare for the worst.
Seems fair.
It seems like it comes up every legislative session now, banning or reversing the ban on Sunday liquor sales. Ron, what do you think?
Well, why don't we have a rule? There's no steak on Tuesday. You can't buy beef on Thursday. Chickens
don't
for
give
Friday.
any ideas.
They might do it. Well, this is the dumbest thing. You can go to a bar on Sunday. You just can't
Who's
buy a
stopping
bottle of
this?
it. You can cross the bridge and go to Wisconsin, which is what people are doing. This is idiotic.
More idiotic is that this debate comes up every year, and so I either want it, let's just either do it, or let's not even propose it anymore. I'm sick of the whole concept.
Well,
okay, we won't talk about it anymore until something actually happens.
Excellent.
Tomorrow is being called Super Saturday. Lots of sporting events going on. Ron, which one is bigger, the Kentucky Derby or the big boxing match?
Well, it got to be the Pacquiao-Mayweather boxing match, because the winner of that
You'll be watching it.
I will be watching. Get a couple of $100 million. You know, the winner of the Kentucky Derby gets a bucket of oats. Okay, I'm sorry, but which is the bigger event?
Well, you're 100% right. Even though both fighters are past their prime, it's so rare for us to have a super fight, so
this
to speak,
might be
of
the
any
last
sort.
one, Dan.
And I hope you're wrong, but you might be right.
You might not see it again.
Bud Light is apologizing this week for a controversial beer label. It says, quote, "The perfect beer for removing the word no from your vocabulary for the night." Offensive, Dan?
Yes. Although
you cannot say it.
I'm not with
you got to be
Pitchfork Nation
politically correct and say it's offensive.
That they planned it, that this was what their whole bit is anything goes. That's what they're trying to say.
Well, they're selling beer, Dan.
They are.
Okay.
That's the other part of the no that bothers me too, is about you are allowed to you don't have to have 72 beers, to feel comfortable. But let's be honest, in 2015, you got to know where this is going to go.
Is anybody not going to buy the beer because they're offended? I think
some
these
people said they wouldn't.
Yeah, well, a lot of people say a
for
lot. They're in a bar after 14 drinks.
And that's the
I'm
only
not
one there?
drinking Bud Light. I don't think so.
Okay, finally, there's reportedly a problem with the Apple Watch. If you have tattoos on your wrist, it may not work as well. My question to both of you, are you getting the Apple Watch, and do you have any tattoos I should know about? Dan.
It's kind of an invasive
She didn't
question.
ask if you have any tattoos. It's tattoos
that know about.
She should know about.
Well,
those are two separate questions.
My Bragg Minneapolis tattoo is under my watch right now, so it's already obscured.
Yeah, it doesn't make you I don't care how much you do, you're not from here.
Apple Watch interests me not at all.
No.
You?
No, it's too complicated.
It
took me months to learn how to operate my
I like toys and gimmicks, but that one's stupid.
Okay, enough said for tonight.
Makes absolutely no
I mean, I don't understand even why we need
cost?
this thing. I don't know.
It's like $5,000.